lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social slime, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. Caesar shit, force of air. Fuck them back, it's only for they war. They shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one makes countries lie to your face, fight and die. Cause God forgives. Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line. Lower classes, social side, they don't matter. Genocide, sick from water, sick from air. Making money, they don't care. See their shit, force a bear. Fuck them back, that's only fair. They bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids. No one leaves countries lie to your face, fight and die. Cause God forgives. Yeah. Coming back around again.
Welcome to the show. It's time for Rock the Boat right here on UCY.tv. I'm your host, Ron Stevens, and it is the 27th of August, 2017. And we're going to talk about some stuff that people need to know about. One of the things I did last night before I went to bed, and I went to bed damn late last night, was I put up a post on I don't know what you call it, Jewbook, Facebook, whatever, and it seems to be getting a lot of play here. So I found this site called Muslim News, and it's not really Muslim news. It's more like, I don't know who's running it. It's apparently out of the UK, but it has, it sounds just like Jew news, right? Everybody's picking on us, right? And we are the victim news. But there's one post in there that says Canada hate crimes against Muslims increased by 60%. So says the Muslim News. But I got a funny feeling this is just an offshoot, NGO, UN globalist funded propaganda site pushing the agenda. And but what I put in here was that because I'm very disappointed in the people in the West, especially in North America. I'm very disappointed in them. They like to whine and bitch and complain, and I've been trying for as long as I can remember to try to get them to get their feet underneath of them and try being adults instead of children. Some people don't like it when I call them children, but if you're going to whine and bitch and complain and look to the other party to get rid of this party so that this new party will help fix the problem that you haven't got the balls to stand up and address your children. If you're stupid enough to think that the right and left are anything but two boots on the same globalist tyrannical body that wants to crush you. And they've been doing a pretty good job of it so far. We in the West, for some oddball reason, have been dumbed down to think that we have special privileges that we feel guilty about for some oddball reason. But that's from years of propaganda being pounded down people's throats and people not paying attention to what's going on and just going about their little airhead ways with their heads in the sand. You know, we're the greatest country in the world. Well, you're not even a country. You're a freaking corporation. So start there. Okay? You've been hoodwinked. You've been lied to since the day you were born. Deal with it. There's no such thing as a right and left that's going to come and save your bacon. There are no superheroes out there that are going to come and save your bacon. Your bacon will be saved by your own efforts. And if you're not going to put any effort into it, you're going down. And you got nobody to blame but yourselves. And I read this last night. My wife seen this thing. I don't know what site she was on. It was just I don't know, a mem or whatever, but it's brilliant. And I'm going to read it again. Rather than a wall, America needs to build a giant mirror. And this ain't just directed at America. This is directed at the West in general. But it is this pretty particular thing speaks of America. Rather than a wall, America needs to build a giant mirror to reflect on what they've become. Okay, and what we become is nations of weak spirits, weak minds, and weak spines. But we also got to reflect and remember who our forefathers were and how strong and determined they were. Because that blood's flowing through your veins and you're going to have to activate it. Which means you're going to have to start dealing with reality. And you're going to have to think about your Creator, and you're going to have to think about your forefathers, and you're going to have to think about their children, grandchildren, those not yet born, because you, my friends, have a responsibility to all. This is not about your present situation. This is not about, oh, look what this politician and that politician is doing. We need to get him out of here. Grow the hell up. Being a bunch of whiny children. You know, people bitch about the Jews whining and complaining all the time, and none of the Muslims are whining and complaining all the time. They're the same damn group of people. They're all Semitic. Anybody that thinks the Jews and the Muslims ain't working this game together is a fool. They're using the exact same thing as the Jews. If you say anything negative about a Jew, we're going to come and take you to human rights. If you say anything negative about a Muslim, we're going to take you to the human rights. Where the hell did this come from? It came from the same place that set up the United Nations and the League of Nations before it. These are the people that wish to destroy the idea of nation states because they want their global state. And unless you want to be shoved down into a third world nation status under international law, then you better get to work. You know, I'm so sick and tired of hearing people going, oh, I guess we're screwed now. Well, you may be screwed. I ain't screwed because I ain't going down fighting. And if we all just stood up, we win. It's that freaking simple. I have no use for protesters. I have no use for protest signs. I find it the most ridiculous, that's the most childlike thing that I've ever seen. I've always been disgusted with it, ever since the first time I saw it when I was quite young. It doesn't take a really highly intelligent guy to go, what the hell are they doing that for? Because all you're doing is standing around showing that you've got the mindset of a bunch of little whiny children. That you're not grown up men and women on a mission to straighten this mess out. And they know it. They love protest signs because they know you're fools. If you're holding up protest signs, you're a fool. And if you get caught up in these groups, these right-left groups that are protesting against each other, all you're doing is playing into their hand. Because their job is to create chaos. The more chaos they can create, the more chaos you get involved in, the quicker they move their agenda forward. And the quicker they make the divide among the people deeper and deeper and deeper until the nation tears itself to pieces, which is their plan. But we're doing it for them because they don't have the power to do it. Okay? They have to get us to do it, and we're doing it. So don't do it. No, it's not a big deal. I remember I was seeing that meme or picture, whatever you call it, years ago when we first started doing online radio, and somebody made this thing up of a playing table. You got the bankers and the lawyers and that sitting around there playing whatever game they were playing, cards or whatever it was they're doing. They got their good scotch and their good cigars, and they're all fat and happy and full of themselves. And you look down, and who's holding up the table? Us. Okay? We who are beneath them, or so they think. So you got a group of men on their hands and knees and tables on their back. And the caption is something along the line, all we got to do is stand up and game's over. And that's it. It can't get any simpler than that. But we'd rather whine and bitch and complain about politicians and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Soroses and all the rest of the nonsense. Just blowing noise. That's all it is. It's blowing noise. And it's stopping you from doing what you need to do. Anyways, I posted this up here, and I said, this is a surprise, question mark. This is regarding the hate crimes against Muslims in Canada. You come to our land and expect us to bow to your wants and wishes while refusing to integrate to your new home. Expect the percentage to grow, not decline. We're pretty damn accommodating, but we have our limits. Don't push us, because we will push back. This isn't Europe. It's North America. And North America was the last place that the forefathers could go to try to start anew, to live in peace and freedom. And we've let that slip. We've allowed ourselves to be sucked into wars we should have never been in. And all those wars were designed for was to move their agenda forward. And now we're involved in the Third World War, which Albert Pike predicted. And he said exactly what it was going to be, and it is exactly what it is. It's a spiritual, psychological war. They cannot, there's no way that anyone can justify the bombing of the West. Because the West is the one's been doing all the bombing. And bombing us wouldn't fly. So it's a spiritual, psychological war. They have to crush your spirits. And they're cleansing our lands of our history. You get in trouble if you fly a Confederate flag. They're pulling statues down all over the place. John A. Macdonald here in Canada, the very first Prime Minister, the so-called father of Canada. They want to remove his emblems off the schools. Who does? The teachers' union. Well, every single union is involved in the takedown of your nations. All of them. Go look them up. Take your union if you're in your union and put in international to whatever your union is, or international unions, or your union in the United Nations, and you will find that your union leaders are working against you and your nation. You know, you look up the legal meaning of the word union, and you'll find cabal. What did they do when they took down Russia? They turned it into what? A union. But all of your unions are involved in it, all of them. All of your preachers are involved in it, all of them. All of your teachers are involved in it, all of them. And they built this huge bureaucracy of boards and commissions and such and such. None of these people are elected. They're all made to be arm's length from the government that created them. And they're all pushing the agenda. Now, so many of our people are caught up in this nonsense. The union says, you know, we need to be sustainable, and the membership goes, yeah, we need to be sustainable, without ever questioning what the hell's going on. You know, the teachers, they push this, well, everybody pushed this nonsense of global warming on the people, but it's being fed through the churches and the schools and the media. Your kids have been turned into pincushions for the vaccine companies, of which are funding the United Nations, because if you go to the WHO, you know, they want another pandemic, just like they did back with the H1N1 bird flu. And right there in Geneva, the WHO, it says how great the vaccine program's going. And they're making a lot of money on it, destroying your children. And they said a year or so before the H1N1 that if we don't have a pandemic soon, people will start to lose faith in the vaccine system. So they fire up a bird flu. And now they're yammering on about another pandemic. And we've allowed this to happen to us because we've become weak of the spirit, the mind, and the spine. We'd rather whine and bitch and complain and play this left-right game, expecting somebody or some party to show up that's going to fix things. Now, I am no fan of any politician. I was invited, I was told I would make a great politician by a major political party, one of the two main parties in Canada, that I had a great future in politics. I told them I had no future in politics because I'm missing something. And that guy who was trying to recruit me says, I watched you the whole way through this campaign, and you, sir, are missing nothing. But I am. He said, well, I don't know what it is. I said, simple. I don't have the capacity to smile at somebody, shake their hand, while I'm lying to them. At least he was an honest politician because he went, oh, that. I went, yeah, that. He didn't even miss a beat. He said, well, if you ever change your mind, I'm telling you, you got a great future in politics. And that was a bit of political truth. Yet, the vast majority of the people are either left or right. You're either stupid with an L on your back or you're stupid with an R on your back. All parties, all politicians, and your nation is a member state of the United Nations, which is run by international law, of which we acquiesce to because we're member states of the United Nations. Which takes in, I mean, just go look at all the organizations of the United Nations. They control your food, they control your health, they control your politics, they control your laws, they control your banking. And all, you know, when I went and looked back at some history and the the lead up to the World War I, and the purpose was the League of Nations in Israel, and Mandel House running around trying to convince the Americans that they needed to sign on to the League of Nations. That's when America was still basically running its own show. And the American people refused because they still remembered why they fought the War of Independence. And Mandel, who was Wilson's go-boy, who was involved in the creation of the Fed and everything. So they get Wilson running around telling Americans that if they don't sign on to the League of Nations, there's going to be another major war in the not too distant future. Now, how would he know that? This is the President of the United States of America running around threatening the American people that if they don't sign on to this globalist agenda, which is the whole deal is to take down the nation states, make them disappear, make the Christian faith disappear, make the Constitution of America disappear. But the people still remember why they fought the War of Independence. They want nothing to do with it. So, just like Wilson said, along comes another depression, another world war. And this time America signs on. And it's been shit city ever since. So this idea that the left is only involved in it, and the right's going to save our asses, pull your head out of your ass, because you've been deceived. And you've been lied to since the day you were bloody well born. So now we're at a position where we're either going to fix this problem or we're going down. And I have no intentions of going down. Just picture why your forefathers came and left their homelands was to get out from under the boot of tyranny. They made huge sacrifices, much larger sacrifices than anybody's asking anybody today to make. And why did they make those sacrifices? For themselves? No. No. They rolled in here with the Geneva Bible under their arm, which specifically stated that the Pope is the Antichrist. And they were absolutely correct. All roads lead to Rome. And they came here in order to do what we're supposed to be doing. They didn't do what they did for themselves. They did it for the children, the grandchildren, those not yet born. But see, in this era, we've gotten so far away from our moral obligations, and we got so caught up in entertainment and stuff that we've lost our way. We've lost the understanding of what's actually important. We don't think about our forefathers. We don't think about those coming after us. We only think about now. What have I got today? And that's not by accident. That was programmed into you to make you weak. and just keep dividing the people. Out of chaos comes order. Well, how much more chaotic can things get? But we will beat this back. And the reason we will beat this back is we have no choice. Now, this post that I put up, I'm kind of happy about it a little bit, because most of the stuff I see on Facebook is rather childish. And a lot of the stuff, a lot of the comments I see are rather mindless and thoughtless and childish. But this particular post, it kind of goes with my thought process. The comments I'm getting and the number of hits I'm getting on this post shows that there is people waking up. There is people that are getting their backs up. There are people who are starting to finally realize the left and the right is nothing but a bad joke. There are people commenting in here that they have a responsibility. There's people posting in here, they've had it. Enough is enough. And that's a good sign. So we just got to keep working away at this. And then we got to solidify these people. And then we stand up. Personally, I want to thank all of the good researchers, not these PSYOP clowns running around on the internet, these disinfo people putting themselves up as good, truthful people. They're not. Very damn few of them out there. They don't have an agenda or pushing an agenda or opportunists. But there are some good men and women out there on the internet that are doing good work. And a lot of them have been at this a long time. They're very frustrated, you know. And I get that, because once you once you know, you can't not know. Once you see, you can't not see. But once you get it, then you think everyone else should just get it. And it becomes very frustrating, you know. But you good researchers out there, you made a commitment to figure it out. And it took you a long time to figure it out. So you just figure, because I know, then everyone else should just accept what I say to them without questioning it. But you got to realize these people haven't done the research, and they have been programmed, and they've been lied to since the day, and they will hang on to the lie. There's an old saying, you know. And it's psychology. And I hate philosophers, and I hate scientists with a passion. Because they're all, I mean, sure, there's probably a good philosopher out there somewhere, but you're not going to hear about him, because if he ain't pushing what they can sell, you ain't getting no airplay. And I'm sure there's some good, honest scientists out there that are screaming, but their voice ain't going to get heard. And it's the same thing with the teachers. I'm sure there's some good teachers out there. I mean, I did have that one guy on the show was a teacher, and after the show, he got a hold of me and said, "You know what? I was scared shitless to do this, but now that I've done it," he understood his obligation, and he said, "I'm not lying to the kids anymore." So, you can deprogram people, and you can get people to realize they can become strong. It's a tough game. And understand the frustration of the people who have dedicated themselves to raising their people up. And it's damn frustrating. But it's starting to move. So all of your efforts have not been a waste of time. I hear people, "Why am I doing this?" Right? It's a freaking waste of time. Everybody get their head up their ass. Well, some people's heads farther up their ass than others, or deeper in the sand than others. It takes them a little bit longer to look around and go, "Damn, this ain't right." So we just got to keep plugging away. And then we win. This thing has been going on a long, 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 long time. But they're doing the exact same thing. I mean, all you got to do is look around. They're pulling statues down in Europe. What did they do when they went into Iraq? They pulled the statues down. They're going to Libya. They want to cleanse this. They want to rebrand the nations. Okay, and that way they don't have the friction. But to see what they're doing in America now is disgusting. That video I put up, I think that was, where the hell was that? Oklahoma? No, it wasn't Oklahoma. I forget where it was. That church. On, I can't remember the name of the state. I don't think it was Arkansas. One of the southern states anyways. And they got an order. There's a chapel on the university grounds, and an order came in from Washington that they have to pull the cross off the top of the steeple, and they have to vacate all the Bibles out of the building. And I'm glad to say that thing it hasn't been up that long. Few days, couple days. It's got just a few thousand hits, under 9 million. So people are starting to pay attention, and the harder they push, the more people are going to say enough is enough. But we got to get, we can't, what they've got people doing now is they've got the people watching these clashes between the right and the left. It's no different than Occupy. I mean, Occupy was anti-corporation, funded by the corporations. And the right-left head button here is funded by the same people. As Rockefeller said to Morris Strong, don't get into, don't go into politics because we control both sides. Well, more influence from the outside. And that's what they do. They build these little NGOs and they pit them against each other. In most cases, the only ones that know what's going on is the leadership. And they pick these kids and these people up from the universities and that, one side or the other, and they pit them against each other. And people watch this stuff, and they obviously don't want to get involved in it because it's kind of freaking them out. What the hell's going on here? So we have to ignore all that noise, because that's all it is. It's noise and it's distraction to keep people's minds busy. when they should be planning on how they're going to take back their neighborhoods and eventually take back the nation. The nation is the people. And the nation and everything in the nation belongs to the people. Not a bunch of treasonous politicians. So we have to take back the administration of our nations. We, the people, have to do that. And it's going to be glorious. Because it's the only way to get to peace and freedom. It is the only way. So don't be fearful. Be excited about it. This is a great opportunity. You know, look at it, 1,000 years of freedom and peace, or 1,000 years of tyranny and continued war and continued terrorism. Now, the people that rule us at present are the ones that brought us all the wars, the ones that enslaved us through the legal system. You want to continue with that? Why would you want to continue with that? The only reason you could possibly be fearful of that is it because you're still in the child position and you still look at the government as mommy or daddy who's going to look after us. But you're not children. You're fully grown men and women. And they have, whether you like to realize it or not, they have kept you in a position, in a childlike position, which they trained you in the public schools, to always bow down to authority and never question it. We see this all the time. They can pass the most dumbass so-called law, and people will bow to it. Well, I don't want to get in trouble, Well, I don't agree with it. Really don't agree with it. It's bull crap. But I don't want to fight it. I don't want to get in trouble. So I'll just reach in my pocket and give them the money they want, which is exactly the same as the Roman sin tax. They create new sins, which are new statutes. The statutes are the sins. And you'll pay for your sins. Is that how you want to continue? Because they'll just keep writing this shit, only this time it's coming from the international side. And you'll have somebody, you got to understand this. You got to really understand this. We are the minority, okay? The white race is the global minority. And when they get us where they want to get us, where they start their direct democracy, which I'm going to talk to about in a little bit, because I see somebody from direct democracy, or they call it something else now, left a comment. Everybody's bitching and complaining about the Muslims and that. And, this is what we need to do. No, that's exactly what we don't need to do. And I'll discuss some of that later. But the way this is laid out, the global community will be voting directly on issues to reach a consensus on an issue. And these issues that will come up will be all derogatory to the West. The voting will take place via computers, electronic voting, on a global scale, of which we are the minority, which means we lose the vote. So there will be questions, global questions like, we're using, an earth and a half of resources every year. This can't continue. And these people over here have no resources that they're using. They have very little electricity, very little water. And over here in the West, and, the question could, should we, put a law in that the West has to use less water and electricity? Well, the whole game has been to get the majority of the people on the planet to hate the West. They've done a very good job of it. We've bombed the shit out of them. We've stolen their resources. We've kept them down. So yeah, they hate us. They don't know us. We don't know them, but they hate us. We call them names. They call us names. We don't know each other, but this is what's been put into our stupid little heads. And now when the international voting starts taking place, we will lose every single vote because we don't have the voting bloc. We will always have the minority vote. And that's what this direct democracy crap is about that they're trying to feed the people in the West. Oh, they're saying they're anti-UN and that, but I follow it back. I ended up where? The UN. People don't read nothing. They don't research shit. It's all about implementing international law, and it's us who we're going to consent to it. That's this whole idea of direct democracy, that we will regain and we will vote on resources in that. The use of resources in that. Well, the whole plan here is because now they've bankrupted every country with phony debt, and you're the surety for the debt, but you're so far in debt, you're no good anymore. So the idea is that the next bit of surety for the debt is the resources of the nations, the world's resources. And the vote will be, we're using too many of the world's resources, not our resources, but the world's resources. And they have to be leveled. And if we allow that to happen, we're going to have a real fight on our hands. Because once we're under that international law completely and totally, they've got the authority to come into our lands or onto our lands and wreak havoc, which they've done in many countries around the world as they spread their so-called democracy. Demonocracy is better word for that. So we've got a fight on our hands. Question is, are we going to fight? Or are we just going to curl up in a little ball like a scared little child? I want the nations looking after their own resources. I want the nations to help those in need, absolutely. But we have got to get back to controlling our nations. Why did the Chinese build the Chinese wall? To keep their people out? No. To keep the others, or to keep the Chinese people in? No. They built the wall because they didn't want others coming in. It's the same as Japan. Their culture is important to them, but they tell us in the West that we don't have a culture. We're all just immigrants. And because we're all immigrants, well then, open your borders to the other immigrants. Make no mistake about it, this Islamic infestation is the infantry to take down our nation's laws, of which are legal, which really need to be changed out anyways. But the fact is that Islam is a state. Okay, it is not a secular state. The state is law and faith. And because it's a state, that's why they have no-go zones all over the place. Because they come as a state. They don't come as immigrants. They come as a state. And eventually their state will overthrow your state. And they're using the Muslims because they want to get rid of the Christian faith because they've been standing in the way too long for the globalists. And that damn American Constitution has been a pain in the internationalist's butt. And it's been basically ripped to shreds. You got judges don't even recognize it anymore. I think it was George Bush, baby Bush, said it'd be a lot easier, if it were dictators, it'd be a lot. And he called the Constitution damn piece of paper or something. These are the things that are standing in their way. We in the West are standing in their way. And we in the West need to nip this in the bud. We don't just have to be in the way as they slowly dismantle us. We really got to be in their way, i.e., we need to kick the asses of anybody who supports this globalization, who is implementing the globalist UN agendas, because they're Trojan horse. That's what Cicero said way to hell back in 43 BC or whatever it was. That an enemy at the gates is less of a problem because you know what you're dealing with. But the enemy's within. It's in your churches. It's in your schools. It's in every political realm in your nation. They are traitors. But as Cicero said, you don't notice them. They speak the same language. They wear the same clothes. And they're far, far more dangerous than a standing army. And they're inside our nations. And if our nations are survived, we got to get them out. Or we need to corral them. But we cannot allow them continue to function. I don't know how many NGOs there are out now, thousands upon thousands of the damn things. And they all need to be dealt with. And I hear people say, oh, it's too far gone now. Shut up. That's all I got to say to you. Shut up. Because if your attitude is we can't do anything about it, then you are as guilty as those that are trying to take us down. Because you're wandering around telling your neighbors, oh, well, what can we do about it now? And for some reason, the brain sucks up negativity faster than positive thought. Negative thought, you just curl up and die. Positive thought requires that you engage. And we better get rid of this negativity and we better get positive. And we better work on our spirits, and we better work on our spines, and we better work on our frickin' minds. And we better get to it. Those that know what the final plan is, understand what kind of games are being played out here, they understand their responsibilities. And we got to get vocal, local. Because local's where all the power lays, and the globalists know it. That's why their agendas are implemented global to local. Global agendas being implemented locally without the knowledge of the people, through the local municipal offices, through the schools, through the churches, through the media. Giving all of the power to the globalists. Now, just go back and think in America why you people fought the War of Independence. Why you didn't sign on to the League of Nations. Because your forefathers came here to start anew and to preserve freedom and their faith. And we watched that be decimated. And now we have a whole bunch of weak people. But I'm a firm believer that the blood of our forefathers is still coursing through our veins. And we just simply have to activate it. And then we will stand up and we will have a new war of independence. But I don't believe that we're going to win a war of independence with fighting in the streets. I don't believe that we need much violence at all for this war of independence, because this war is a spiritual, psychological war. And that's how they're taking us down. They're not taking us down with guns. And we get our nation back without a whole hell of a lot of gunplay. Besides that, we're out-armed. Just like the Indians were. The Indians fought hard, but they were outgunned. And they too were lied to through these stupid treaties and that, just like we're being lied to through these international treaties. So we have to go and get our nations back. Which we're going to do. It ain't that damn difficult. Really, all it requires is a commitment. Once you commit, it's time to go. So again, I want to thank all of those people, the good, moral men and women who have stuck it out to date, who continue to do their research, who continue to uncover important information. I don't know how many times, I know there's some other researchers, like you go, okay, there's nothing else I need to know. I mean, really, there isn't anything else we need to know. But there's also always something you're going to run across and find out that is pertinent to what we're attempting to do here. So I want to thank those people for their continued research and bringing forward new information and alerting people, because the internet's a quagmire of disinfo. And people who are just beginning to question are walking into a swamp. And they're so easily picked up by these disinfo groups, which is most of the internet, to put them across as truthers. It's easy for them to gather those people up because those people really haven't done their research. They're just popping in. Maybe somebody told them, you should listen to Alex Jones, right? And they go in, oh, wow. And they're caught up in this shit. And it is shit. So it's very important that those who are the real moral men and women get steadfast. Now, I know my friend Chris, who I have a great deal of respect for, has been talking to several other hosts who are clean, who are dedicated, who are committed, of maybe setting up a new site or whatever, and try to pull people from each of our sources into a pool of people, which is a pretty damn good idea, actually. Because we need to get a core going here, a solid core. The people who, once they realize they've been conned by these disinfo agents, need a place to go where they know they're not going to be conned. Because we have to build a strong core of people if we're going to win this war. Because the way I see it now is totally fractured. It's too spread out. It's not coordinated. It's scattered. It's chaotic. It's difficult for people to find that solid core because I don't think it's out there right now. So I want to take my hat off to Chris. We've discussed this before, and I think it's time now that we put this core together. Michael Walsh's new site, I guess he's left the Renegade, had enough of that shit. And then he set up a new site, and I cannot remember what it's called offhand. But there's a video on that site. Maybe somebody knows his site. You can send me a Skype or something, what the name of it is. But on that video, I've had Michael on the show a few times, and brilliant guy, prolific writer, and was deeply involved in attempting to save Britain way back in the 60s. And got overcome by the propaganda. We have a very big war against the propaganda. It's not really a gun war, it's a propaganda war. And, he ended up in Spain because it was getting a little dicey there in England as far as him staying out of jail for some long period of time, being a hate monger and all. Truth is hate because truth is the enemy of the state. But I'll get the name of that site here somewhere. And I'd like everybody to go watch the video because even though I interviewed him a few times, he once I watched that video, who is Michael Walsh, it gives pause for thought because exactly what he was doing, not exactly, but they did some really good work and they did bring people together. But one of the things that that is missing, as far as I'm concerned, is people's absolute avoidance of becoming involved in the political system. And I'm talking about federal or state politics. I'm talking about local politics, because again, that's where the globalist agendas are being implemented. Every city manager or CAO is specifically trained to implement these agendas without even the council's knowledge. Now, there are quite a few Marxists in that in the local councils, but they don't generally make up the majority. The majority of people in local councils really don't even know what the hell's going on. You know, they were part of the local business community, or the Rotary Club, or a school teacher or something like that, and they got stroked and told they were really smart and important and that, and they went and got themselves voted in because they vet these people, but they're just puppets. They don't even know what the hell's going on for the most part. But the CAOs and the city managers, they are the ones who set the council agendas. Not the council, not the mayor, but the CAO city managers are the ones that set the agendas. And the agendas that they set are the globalist agendas. So, this protesting and that doesn't work. It has never worked. It never will work, because it shows that your children, and they don't have to worry about a bunch of kids running around placards. They're not going to do nothing. They're not coming through the doors. They're not going to haul us out of here. They're not going to arrest us. So let them protest. But the power, and I can't say this enough, the power of your nation does not reside at the federal or the provincial state levels, because nobody lives there. All of the people live at the local level. And that's why the local council is so damned important. They're the ones that are implementing the agendas. Now, very few people could ever afford to mount a proper campaign in a state or a federal level election. We're talking large money. Whereas at the local level, I know where I live, I'm going to be running for mayor again in 2018, and they're going to do every damn thing they can to make sure I don't get in, but that's not the point. I do believe I will win this time. But regardless, I will be running anyways. Because, you see, when you run, you get something that we don't generally have access to, and that's the media. When you run in an election, you get to speak to an audience. You get to speak on the local radio stations, local TV stations. You get to speak in the local newspapers. In other words, you get to spread the knowledge that you possess. You get to talk about the issues that are bothering the people in your local area. And those issues will be things like the LGBTQ and global warming and the high price of electricity and the ever-increasing taxes and the ever-increasing water bills. These are all things that affect your people because they affect you. But you have the knowledge. You know, it's like when I ran in the 207 provincial election, I didn't have any signs, for crying out loud. Because I decided to run 3 o'clock in the afternoon of the last day you could get the paperwork, and I had to have it in the next morning. So I had to hustle. So I had to get a shitload of names there to qualify me to be a candidate. But at the end of that election, the NDP guy, candidate, who had been in government of Bob Rae in Ontario, come up at the end of the last all candidates meeting and asked to shake my hand and asked him why. He said, do you realize that if you hadn't run in this election, not one issue of any importance would have ever been would have been allowed to see the light of day? Because they're all in the same camp. I don't give a shit what your party name is, you're in the same camp. He said, you brought the real issues to the table and you threw them on the table and you had us hopping because they're all scrambling. Now, I had Masons following me around. It was rather comical. Masons pacing the back of these all candidate meeting halls just trying to stare my ass down. You got to look for the humor in this stuff too. But the fact is, they're not going to want you to win, but there is a mathematical equation that will allow you to take control of your local council, and that is 3-1. Now, I know this from marketing. I know how it operates, because if one of you run in your local, you're going to have all of this propaganda jamming on. Every time you open your mouth, they're going to try to jump you as, oh, you're one of those kind of thing. But if you run 3-1, and I'm going to keep saying this till these elections go, you run 3-1. So you got 5 councillors, so you run 15 of them, 15 candidates who know what the hell they're talking about. Now you overpower their propaganda. Now you have 15 people talking about the issues that are really bothering people. You're going to get their ear. And simple math says if you run 3-1, and you only need 3 in a council of 5 to get the majority vote, you will get the majority vote. You don't need to pick up a gun. Once you have the majority vote, then you have the ear of the public. Now, even though all municipal governments are children of the state and must do as the state says, because I don't know what it's like in America. I imagine it's the same thing because all roads lead to Rome. They have the power to pull you out of there and replace the entire council if it's not doing the will of the state or the province. But that's not the point. The point is you can get into negotiations with these people. You can start to change the mindset of those who are giving you a hard time at the state or the provincial level because they, for the most part, don't know what the hell's going on. But what you can do once you have the majority vote, you can begin to rally the people. You know, most people won't go to municipal hall. They go, what's the point? You can't fit city hall and all this crap. Well, you change that out. You got the majority vote. Now you're setting up meetings with the public to discuss what's on their mind, not shooing them out the door. Now, all of a sudden, the weak people go, Jesus, somebody cares about us. And they will get to you like flies to butter or flies to a pile of cow shit. And I have proof that that's how it works. Because in 2010, I ran for mayor, and I kind of tough-loved a couple other guys into running. And I did tell them right off the bat, we ain't going to get in, because there ain't enough of us, and they're not going to allow us in. We have electronic voting now. You can screw this stuff any way you want. But we'll get to talk to people. Now, my friend up north, He didn't get in. But, he did get in eventually because they did some snooping around and they found some dirt on the CAO, city manager, and one of the councilors. So they ran them two out of town, which left an opening, which he should have just walked into, but they didn't want him there. So they were bringing in councilors from other areas that didn't either retired or didn't get elected, saying, well, they have more experience than you, so they'd be better able to conduct business than you. And which is totally against the rules, but tough luck. They don't want people who know what the hell's going on rocking their boat for them, but that's their job, rock the damn boat. So 3 years after the election, he finally gets in, and it ran in 2014, and it got in, and that's exactly what happened. The people who never used to go to the council meetings are full now. They're having rallies outside the councils because Carl knows what the hell he's talking about. He understands how this game's being played out, where the local people don't. They whine and bitch and complain, but there's nobody there to explain it to them. They got no solid footing, so now they have solid footing with Carl, and those people are completely changed. These people in his neck of the woods, they're not whiny little children anymore. They're not wandering around, oh, there's nothing we can do. They're active. We have to activate the people. It's one thing to do research. It's one thing to do these shows. It's one thing to write stuff. But we have to lead by example. And if we're not prepared to lead by example, then we failed ourselves and the good people of our communities. Do I want to run elect? Not particularly. Did I want to run in the two elections I ran in? No. I did it because I got a duty. I have a duty to try to get some information into people's heads that is useful to them. And that's a perfect time to do it. It's a very perfect time to do it because they're looking for somebody to help them. That's why people go to these meetings, these all candidates meetings. That's why these people turn in on the radio during election time. We have to give them the information that they require. We're far along in this now that their ears are open. I'm going to say this too, they didn't allow me to run in the 2014 election because my manager forgot to sign a piece of paper, and there was lots of time to fix it, but they didn't want me running. But I did talk a girl into running in a ward here, and went out and helped her do some door knocking. And the purpose of it was to see if from 2010 to 2014, subjects that we couldn't even bring up in 2010 were in some way palatable in 2014, because like Rockefeller said, our window of opportunity has already begun to close, which means they got to start moving fast. It means you're going to negatively impact a lot more people. And what we found in 2014 were that people had come a hell of a long ways in those 4 years regarding what could be discussed and what couldn't be discussed. And I think I got a pretty good shot at winning this one because, well, a lot of people still think I won 2010, but, when we were knocking doors, I would just introduce them. I'm Ron, and I'm just helping Sheila do some door knocking. They go, we know who the hell you are. Why are you not running? So I got a pretty good shot at this in 2018. Do I want to be the mayor of this burg? No. No, I don't. But I have a duty. Therefore, I must fulfill that duty. I have a duty to the people that don't know. I have a duty to the parents whose kids have been turned into pincushions. I have a duty to the parents who's wondering why the hell they got drag queens in the kindergarten room. But they're afraid to say anything. So those with the knowledge that do have a spine and a mind and some spirit, we can't shirk that duty. We're the ones that are going to spearhead the change. There's no point in getting a group of people together with a bunch of frickin' signs going, "We want Trudeau out." Huh? What the hell's that? What does that accomplish? I'll tell you what, nothing. So 2019 comes along, and the Conservatives get voted in. Liberals get tossed. What's going to change? Absolutely nothing. They'll rebrand the message to a conservative brand, but the same programs are being implemented. And it won't be short order before, well, we voted the Liberals out so you guys could fix this. Well, sorry, we're all hooked to the same group of people. And we don't represent you anyways. We never did. We represent the state, not the people. We represent the global agenda, not the people. You're simply the surety for the debt. Politicians never say that to their constituents because it might upset them, right? Truth's a bitch. But the truth will win out if we work it right. So I'm hoping some of these folks that Chris has been talking to, I hope that we can get together here and see what we can sit down and put together and hopefully start moving in a more objective, positive way, and that we can become or start a core anyways. I don't expect to be the core, but start a core and of trusted people, so that those who are waking up know that when they read something or they're told something from this core group, that they can depend on it to be correct, and that it's not undermining anything, and there's no deception in it. I think we can do something with that. We're going in the right direction here. I don't know how many hours of online podcasts or broadcasts, or whatever you want to call it, go on every day on the internet, but I'm thinking it's many thousands of hours. So, if you're a newbie or whatever rolling into this mess, you can trip around for a long time and be deceived for a long time before you figure out you're being deceived. And that's why we need this core. So that people can be confident that they're not being deceived, that the information being given to them is correct. And that we need to inspire these people that they have a duty. Then we can grow our core. But I'm absolutely convinced the most positive thing we can do is go get a hold of these local councils. Vision this. We got all the local councils. Now, this is just, a thought process, because will take another few elections to pull it off. But, and we're not out of time. People are always going, oh man, we're going, well, I thought about this several times in the past, and I got into that idea that we only got X number of years before this is done deal. Well, I was incorrect because I let my emotions get in the way. We have to be pragmatic at this. But, if people say, well, the local people don't have that much power. They don't really have any power because they're children of the state or in the child position. Well, yeah, but all children have to grow up at some point, or they're supposed to. Now, I know for a fact that one council just north of us here a few years ago when they were doing the amalgamations, which is the regionalization, which is the Sovietization of our municipalities and townships and that, voiced their concerns and their disgust with what was going on. And the province did walk in. It was a small community, and the province did walk in and pull that council the hell out of there and replaced it with their people. But if we have many councils, we have control of many councils, our power grows. Many hands make light work. Control of many councils exerts much power. It's one thing to go to pick off somebody with a protest sign. It's pretty easy to go pick off a small council. But as we become active at our local levels, we not only gain power, but we gain the ear of the so-called constituents. And that's much more important than the power. But you see, the way it plays out is that if you don't have any political power, you do not have the authority that's attached to it. So the ear of the people is not as acute if you're just standing on the street talking to somebody. You're talking about the problems of that. Well, how are we going to fix the problems? That's the question. How are we going to fix the problems? Run for council. I don't want to run for council. I just want to stand out here and whine and complain, which is equivalent to throwing pebbles at the castle walls, which will have no effect on the castle or those inside the castle whatsoever. You can stand around and march around the castle till you're blue in the face. You can throw rocks at the castle walls till you're blue in the face, or you're an old man, and you will affect nothing positive. Period. Because they will just continue to implement the agendas that they are there to implement. I find this to be the most exciting time to be alive. And I have people say, how can you say that? You're broke most of the time. Your frickin' house ain't even finished yet. You're walking. How can this be exciting? Well, those are just irritations, really. I don't ever want to be some smug asshole sitting in a big house with an expensive car with my head up my ass. That would be a waste of my life. Anyways, I'm going to stop rattling away with this stuff for a bit, and I want to stick this Muslim thing in here, this Muslim news, so people can take a boo at it. I see there's some state senator or something, representative or something, on one of these news things that he's very angry This on the Muslim News, And this, I didn't realize that till right now. It was late when I stuck this thing up. But this story about hate crimes against Muslims increased by 60% is actually written by a guy down near Chris's neck of the woods in Trenton, Ontario. By Barry Ellsworth, Trenton, Ontario. And this is on the Muslim News site. But somewhere in here, if you look through some of this news, you'll find and the thing about the Jews and the Muslims not being in the same camp, there's a very good story in the news here. Let's see. Where did I find that? Under religion, I think it was. There's a very good story here, and this is out of Belgium. It says Muslim Jewish groups to appeal the Belgian slaughter ban. Okay, the Muslim and Jewish communities in Belgium are to appeal a decision by one of the country's regions to prohibit the slaughter of unstunned animals. It would effectively criminalize halal and kosher. And halal and kosher are the same thing. But then both the Muslims and the Jews are Semitic. But there's a story in here somewhere. I think it was under religion. Maybe not. Now this looks like a UN garbage site, or it's a collection of news regarding Muslims as putting the Muslims up as being the victims. And Canadian charged with hate crime against Muslims. But where is that? There's a guy in here. U.S. Islamophobic hate crime soars by Savannah Elver. I can't pronounce these people's names. Out of Washington, the number of anti-Muslim hate crimes, Islamophobic attacks, rose 91% in the first half of the year compared to the same year period in 2016. Well, you guys are ahead of us in the States, because the story I put up, it's only risen 60% here or something. So we got to pick up the pace. If Islamophobic hate crimes have soared 90% in the United States and we're lagging along at 60%, we up here north of the border better pick up the pace a little bit. But the problem is, the hate crimes, which are not hate crimes, it's the same as I'm saying, a hate crime is me saying that, this 6 million Jew figure from Auschwitz and the camps is a load of shit. That would be labeled as a hate crime. So, you can't say anything about anything. If I say Jews look funny, that's probably a hate crime. See here it says Canada hate crimes are only up 60%. Jesus. Here it is. I don't know if anybody in the States knows this guy. Louisiana Congressman Clay Higgins on Sunday posted a hateful Facebook message calling on all of Christendom to kill every radicalized Islamic suspect. The free world, all of Christendom, is at war with Islamic horror, Higgins wrote. So that's kind of a ticked off congressman from Louisiana. And he's bang on. But what he doesn't seem to be telling people, and this is what irritates me about these politicians, right? Now, I don't know if it says he's a congressman, but I don't know which side he's on. I don't know which side's in power in Louisiana, put it that way. They never bring up what's behind it. Okay? I don't hear people running around saying, that's it. You're cutting all ties with the UN, the globalists, the World Bank, the WHO, the FAO, and so on and so forth. We're going back to running our own nations. Piss off. You don't hear politicians saying that. You're telling politicians to tell Israel to piss off. And that was, get in the world government and Israel. That was both world wars. We wouldn't have had a second world war. There would have never been a second world war if Americans had signed on to the League of Nations and Israel would have accepted the piece of ground in North Africa, I think it was, that was offered to them. There would have never been a second world war. These people are dogged to get what they want, and proof that they will kill hundreds of millions of innocent people in order to put their agendas in play and to get what they want. And the final stumbling block is the West, which has to be taken down. And we don't want to let it be taken down, because then it's not the politicians' fault, it's not the UN's fault, it's not the globalists' fault, it's our fault. There's no point blaming any other entity than ourselves. Because if we're not prepared to do what's necessary to take back our nations, then we, not they, are the problem. We, not they, are the guilty party. Anyways, this guy goes on, this Mr. Higgins here, goes on, not one penny of American treasure should be granted to any nation who harbors these heathen animals, the message said, using a derogatory religious reference. Not a single radicalized Islamic suspect should be granted any measure of quarter, Higgins said. Hunt them, identify them, and kill them. Kill them all. For the sake of all that is good and righteous, kill them all, his message concluded. Higgins won a House representative seat last December as a tough-talking outsider who promoted himself through online presence and merchandise. He worked previously as a police officer, a position he resigned in 2007 after mounting allegations of excessive use of force, and captain at a sheriff's office. Higgins told Gizmodo website that the lawmaker's disturbing post is referring to terrorists. On Facebook, some users responded to his message with dismay. Wow, you're no better than a terrorist, Misty Johnson wrote. I'm more afraid of people like you than a refugee who was vetted for 2 years by 7 intel agencies. I think we need better vetting of our representatives. You are an unhinged lunatic and playing right into what ISIS wants. This is extremely hateful, Tyler F. Tigeman wrote. I didn't vote for you, but you represent me, and I'd like to hear a lot less hateful speech from the politicians that serve me. Reached by phone, Higgins told the Washington Post that he was surprised that his message was interpreted by some as hateful or an indictment against Islam. In fact, he said he didn't view the post as controversial at all. He said he was calling for the deaths of Islamic terrorists, not peaceful Muslims. When he used the word Christendom, he said he was referring to the Western world, not calling for a war between Christianity and Islam. Working in law enforcement, Higgins said he interacted with people from different faiths and backgrounds, was always respected people based on what was in their heart. Yada, 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 yada. But I think the important part of this, I love this, rights group, Southern Poverty Law Center, said earlier this year that I found a dramatic jump in hate, violence, and incidents of harassment and intimidation around the country in the wake of President Trump's November 8 electoral victory. Well, of course, can't write a story unless you dump on Trump. I do not remember a day, and I live in Canada, Stan. I don't remember a day looking at the variety of newspapers on our newsstand here when I go to get my coffee in the morning, that at least one of these papers on a daily basis is having a problem with Trump. I don't know if the Canadian media doesn't realize it or not, but Trump ain't the president of Canada, and therefore this attack again, I think is that not hate speech? Is what the Poverty Law Center said about the President of the United States not hate speech? Of course it is. But nobody ever gets hauled, right? But anyways, the most important thing I see in this part of this particular story is that it says Higgins won a House of Representatives seat last December as a tough-talking outsider. Okay? And we are the outsiders. And I do believe that the time is here that our voices will be heard. I do believe that the people are frustrated with all this propaganda that's been shoved down their throats, all this nefarious bullshit that's being implemented at your local levels. They're looking for some real men and women to step up to the plate. And you can't win a ball game if you don't walk into the batter's box. It's that simple. Because if you ain't there to swing the stick, you're out. Oh, I hear sirens. Somebody uptown must be listening to my broadcast. Hello, officer. How are you? Listening to the show we're in? Okay, could you just wait? I'm almost done the show. You can take me away when it's done. Pretty ludicrous stuff, but, fear not. We have a job to do. Let's get it done. And that's the other thing I think this core thing is good about. A lot of the people feel isolated. A lot of people are spread around the nation and they're listening to different stuff, but we need that core that people from other areas, we put a core together and then, somebody may hear something one of us says or wrote or something and mention it to their neighbor or a friend that's frustrated running around on the internet. Maybe we can set up something where that we just, set up an email system and we just fire this stuff out to the people. So they don't have to listen, they don't have to tune in at certain times. Post the podcast up and send pertinent information just by email updates and stuff, so that these people don't feel isolated anymore, that they feel that they got a family to work from. And that goes a long way in strengthening people. They're now part of. They're not running. You want to go to the protest? No, I don't. Right? I don't see these things as positive. But this is what the lost souls who are trying, to get something accomplished don't seem to realize that their protests are actually anti-productive. We can do this quietly, just like they did it to us quietly. They plan it, then they go with it. And what we have to plan is to take back of our nations, and we'll do it quietly, and we'll get it done. Quiet is much more productive than running around yelling and screaming and pushing and shoving with signs against these convoluted, created, divisional groups, so we can get it done. So I'm going to stuff this Muslim news in here. I didn't get much chance to look through much of it, but it'll give you an idea of how evil you white people really are, right? And you're the problem. And of course, heterosexuality is a problem as well, but we'll deal with that on another date. But, you white people are pretty nasty. We got to deal with you, and we got to take your nations down, and we got to get rid of your faith, and we've got to destroy your nations, and we have to bring you under international law. So that's that. Now, before we're done here, I want to take a shot at another group of people, which is called direct democracy. I haven't discussed them lately, but I see they're posting again on my site or on my Facebook, and they're very irritating. They are most definitely a globalist group, and I forget what they're calling themselves now. They put together a new website, I guess. The CPU, the Canadian People's Union, CPU Freedom 2017 become a political game changer today. Now, this is we'll go to, well, let's see, we'll go, where did I see this? At the mandate? Rise up, sign up. All right. Now, I'll take another shot at them. Now we have, if you go to mandate, you will see a whole bunch of goofy looking white people. I mean, really goofy looking, mentally deranged, seriously mentally deranged. None of these people look normal. They look way too happy. And it reminds me, you know, when I'm looking at this thing, you know, I expect the turncoat musicians to start singing "We Are the World" or something when I look at this picture. Anyways, Canadians are developing what may be the first nonprofit Canadian People's Union, as nothing in law supersedes the will of the people. It's time for Canadian-made political evolution. Right? Be very, very wary of the word evolution. Our mandate, forever a work in progress. Sadly, however, time is running out. Ooh. Our People's Union is about each and every one of us taking lawful initiatives to end dictatorship rule. This can be achieved by lifting the people into our rightful positions as the lawful, legal shareholders of our countries and having the final decision-making authority within all aspects of governance, including international law, thus rethinking the Canadian economy to automatically turn taxation into dividends. That is the guaranteed income controlled by the globalists. In order to legally succeed in making this much needed positive change, our goal is to reach above and beyond the 51% of the required number of people in each province to finally come together under the umbrella of the official Canadian People's Union. Look up union in legal dictionary and you will come across the word consensus, cabal, bunch of other shit. Okay, and the Soviet Union, the European Union, the North American Union. Okay, doing so allows the people to lawfully take back our consent after having delegated our governance, political representatives when voting elections to a de facto representative democracy system by issuing our proxies to them. Voting for politicians in a representative democracy places the civil servants in the role of masters through a mastermind coup that only serves to remove our powers, which they are handing over to private international corporations on a silver platter without our consent, which is true. But this group's involved in it. These acts are presently being implemented by all levels of Canadian governance, further eroding our right to determine our own system of governance as a collective. You got to watch their language here. Now, I looked at these people a while back, and there was this Lisa, whatever her name is, and that was one of the movers of this thing. And, you know, when I got through this thing and got into their legal stuff, it led me right straight to the UN. Now, while they're denouncing the UN, they're globalist players. Okay, this is the old PSYOP, the disinfo bullshit, and they want you here to send them $40, and they want 51% of the people to sign this legally binding agreement, which is put together by this union. Now, if they're trying to save our nation, you wouldn't be signing a legally binding document. Because if you're trying to save our nation, you know that what enslaved our nation is, in fact, the legal system. And they do the same thing as the lawyers, which is they mix the words legal and lawful, which have nothing whatsoever to do with each other. So if this was a legitimate group of people, they would be using proper language, which they're not. But unfortunately, the average Joe out there doesn't have a clue what the hell they're reading. And this thing is set up to sucker people in. This is about the international voting system. This is about implementing, this is about removing your right to all the resources, which is the new commodity, which is the new monetary system. Because they've bankrupted, just like they bankrupted before, now they made you the surety for the debt, which you are too far in, you can't ever pay it off. So now we're moving to the next stage, which is a cashless society where you will be given a guaranteed income based upon your resources, of which the globalists will have complete and total control over. And that's exactly what this CPU bullshit is about. It's a sucker move. It's a deception. And it needs to be called out, because you put in direct democracy. They have direct democracy. I had these guys on the show one time, and they pestered the shit out of me for a while, and blocked me on some of their Facebooks and that. But I'm not sure I've been there in a while. But the Irish direct democracy movement was actually endorsed by the United Nations. And these decks are going, well, no, it's not like that. Well, of course it's like that. You're a bunch of lying, deceiving turds. And you're trying to sucker my people into signing a legally binding document and sending you $40. You need to slap up the side of the head. That's what you need. So I'm going to stick this in here. And as true crown of Canada's shareholders, Canadians can turn taxation into dividends as the official crown of Canada shareholder, making a national universal dividend generate income for all Canadians, a true common sense of reality without the tax burden and the added emphasis on. That is the guaranteed income. This is the most nefarious group because they're playing on the problems that Canadians and Americans and everybody else in the West is having. They're having their pockets picked, and yes, they're watching their resources be sold off, their infrastructure and that. And this is the very same thing that happened in the Soviet Union when the Iron Curtain came down. Okay, and that goes all the way back to the 1950 Senate hearings with Warburg, where he said, how are we going to have a world government when we've got two major opposing powers? So this is all about world government and, a cashless society where this group of bankers and lawyers control all resources on the planet in order to make sure the planet is sustainable and that we live a sustainable lifestyle. And they will decide how much water you're getting and how much electricity you're getting and what food you're going to eat. And you ain't going to be eating beef. You're going to end up right back in that damn movie, Soylent Green. We're going to live in these crowded, no air-conditioned buildings because, again, it said so in the 76, I think it was the 76 Conference on Human Settlements. What's not sustainable: private property, golf courses, air conditioning, private cars, yada, 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 yada. So now this group of people is asking you to send them $40 and sign a legal document, legally binding document, okay, to give up all of your rights, all of your resources, to give up your nation, and join in on this global society, be a global citizen. Now, they go out of their way to, because these people kind of confused me a little bit when I first ran into them, because they were denouncing the public-private partnerships, which is the sell-off of our resources. And they're bad-mouthing the UN. And I go, oh, okay. But as I read through their stuff, I'm going, oh, wait a minute, this language is kind of screwed up here. But you see, it's written in such a way that the average Joe is going, oh, look at this, we're going to have a Canadian Union, and we're going to have control of all the resources, and we're going to get a guaranteed income, and oh, this is great. But they don't understand the language. They don't understand what's going on. And I don't want people getting suckered into this. Because you think you're doing something positive when you're doing something negative. And that's damned unfortunate. But, keep your eyeballs peeled for this. This has been changed to, it was Direct Democracy Canada. Now it's the CPU, the Canadian People's Union. Same group of people, same players, same language, same everything here. They just rebranded themselves. It says here, they got a thing down here. It says, Canadians and First Nations are being swindled by the UN corporate globalization and privatization agenda urgent. Canadian governments have transferred the reins to private international corporations and their CEOs to rule over our public crown corporations, governance, and infrastructure without our consent. Now that sounds very convincing. It's a good sales pitch, but this ain't what they're pushing. They're pushing the UN agendas. They're pushing a cashless society. They're pushing the guaranteed income for the common good and a collective. And it's an evolution. No, it's not an evolution. It's a con game. And so I'm going to stick this in the chat. And if you are just out there listening, you can go to myfreedom2017.com. That's myfreedom2017.com, and go through this very carefully. You gotta really understand what the hell it is you're looking at, and unfortunately, most people don't. And that's why I think we needed this core of people that we can be a sounding board for people and keep them on the right track. Christopher, how are you, my friend?
Hey, buddy. Very emotional show today. You did well, my friend.
I'm tired.
No, but you.
No, it's my last broadcast. I'm done.
I don't know. I doubt it. But I know
I'm done when they drag me out feet first.
Yeah, now you're talking about a democracy movement, those guys. You had them on your show.
I did, yeah. And I was harassed by them forever, man. It took a long time. I had to lose a bunch of these people. They were harassing me. They were Skyping me. They were Facebooking me. They were harassing the shit out of me, right? But see, truth is the enemy of the state, or the global state in this case. And no, we're not like that.
One of them that was actually kind of starting to understand what you were explaining.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you lost him too?
Yeah, I've actually, when I first went on Facebook, I was brought into this huge group of Canadian Facebookers. I don't know that I'm hooked up to any of them anymore. I think they've cut me loose because, like everything else on the internet, most of it's there to deceive you and to lead you in the wrong direction and get you to join one of the multitude of different groups. And I don't go there. And when I see something is wrong, I out it. And they tried for a long time to convince me that what was actually written there and who they were connected to, I really don't see this, even though it says it. You know, when they say, "Oh no, we hate the UN." Oh yeah, well, and they mentioned to me the Irish direct democracy, so I went and looked at it, and it was given the thumbs up by the United Nations, and they give that to them, and they go, "Oh yeah, that must have been a mistake," right? You know, you people are idiots. You're not even good at what you do, right? You know, so this is what I'm saying. There's so many pitfalls out there for the uninitiated, right? And even when I first read, when they first came out with this direct democracy, when I first went through it, I said, okay, that I agreed. And then I got looking at it a little closer, and wait a minute, something ain't right here. And then I got into the legal stuff, and it took me straight to the UN. That's all over it. We hate the UN, but I end up at the UN. Whoa, hold the phone. Right? So they've rebranded this a little bit now. The same group of people. So it's just a heads up to people, you know.
Well, this is the thing, Ron. I mean, I've fallen in. I've told you, well, on your show, I've told you in the past, I was a member of the Canadian Action Party. I was a member of Comer. And then, you know, you're the one that woke me up, actually, my friend, that made me say, maybe I'm not going to make my membership fees on them anymore.
Well, I was actually asked to run for the Canadian Action Party, and I never heard of them. And, you know, I think it was Mel Hurtig that started that. And that was back when Mel Hurtig was running the National Party or whatever.
Our ex-Minister of Defense.
And so, but when I got caught talking to Connie Fogel, who's a lawyer, and saw some stuff on their site that really irritated me, and she said, well, you know, most Canadians don't know that, so we'll just leave it there. Well, you're lying to them. Well, yeah, but we'll tell them the truth after we're voting. Get away from me. Just get gone, right? Because you're pushing the globalist agenda. And so, yeah, you got to be careful. And that's what I'm saying. If we, you know, I like what you're talking about. If we could build a core of people that can't get deceived, right?
Well,
then those people that come.
If we get all the good people involved, solid people. I'm talking solid core 1%ers.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Alex Jones the other day, and
like ask a question. If you have an issue, then bring it on, and it'll be dealt with real quick.
Or you run into something you're not 100% sure where it's on the up and up or not, get a hold of us and we'll tell you.
Exactly.
And so that's why. No, I thought we should. I tried to get a hold of Alex Jones as a consultant, because he knows everything, and he's honest. Oh, geez, excuse me. Just kidding about that. Alex Jones is quite the character. But, you know, he came out first, and all this deception, this whole huge deceptive group grew out of that.
Well, we'll go back to what his inception. The one thing he did do, I think it wasn't at the time realized by the other agenda that was.
We're out of time. Anyway, I guess it's about time for us to show today. Everybody, get strong.
Selling lies and buying time, killing people next in line, lower classes, social slime, they don't matter, genocide, sick from water, sick from air, making money, they don't care, Caesar shit, force them in, fuck them back, it's only for they bomb, they shoot, they kill, they massacre, rape, they burn the kids, no one makes countries, lie to your face, fight, and die, cause God forgives.
Truth on the Tracks you can catch every Monday night.